Republicans won't stand up for the rule of law, won't stand up for the independence of the Justice Department. It shouldn't matter, but this was a Republican-led investigation that Roger Stone lied to. The committee was then chaired by a Republican. And here you have no more than a couple Republicans willing to say a single word about someone who came in before Congress and lied to them, intimidated witnesses and obstructed them. And why? Because he did it to cover up for a president of their party.
Adam Schiff, he of course is talking about President Trump commuting the sentence of Roger Stone. It is a move that even William Barr was opposed to, even though the Attorney General has had Trump's back on just about everything till this point. Now, the longtime political advisor and friend of Donald Trump, he was set to head off to federal prison this week to start his 40-month sentence. I want to remind you that Stone, convicted of lying to Congress and also witness tampering, among other things. He actually threatened the life of a witness, and the feds, they have the texts and the emails to prove it. Bob Mueller, he also spoke out about this, and that's saying something, penning an op-ed in the Washington Post. And I want to read a portion of it now for you. Stone was prosecuted and convicted because he committed federal crimes. He remains a convicted felon, and rightfully so. Stone became a central figure in our investigation for two key reasons. He communicated in 2016 with individuals known to us to be Russian intelligence officers, and he claimed advanced knowledge of WikiLeaks' release of emails stolen by those Russian intel officers. I want to bring in our guest to discuss. Can't think of a better guy, former federal prosecutor Gene Rossi. And Gene, for people who at home are going to say, hey, you know, every president's got his bad, bunch that he'll pardon at the end of the days. Fine, he did it maybe 6 months early, but all the kids do it. What would you say to that?
Oh, I got to tell you this. The prosecution of Roger Stone, I got to agree with Bill Barr on this. It was righteous. And the reason is this. You can't have witnesses involving an investigation of such high importance to the United States kick sand in the eyes of the investigators. He kicked sand in the eyes of the House of the Senate or congressional Republicans. He kicked sand in the eyes of the prosecutors, and he kicked sand in the eyes of the American people. And he went to trial, and there were 7 counts, and the jury in the New York Minute found him guilty of 7 of 7 counts. And these just weren't jaywalking. He has information regarding his role as the conduit between the Trump campaign and Russian agents who work for Putin. And they were trying to interfere in our election. That's a big deal.
The other thing is, Gene, it's not as complicated as just simply Trump got what he wanted. Stone, wouldn't sing. And he said at the end of the day, I got my guy with a pardon pad who's going to keep me out of the pokey. I just don't have to cooperate. I'll even lie. Whatever I got to do, I'm going to help out the big guy. And at the end of the day, he'll look out for me. Now, granted, I'm sure Stone was sweating since it was the 11th hour and 59th minute before he got the pardon. But at the end of the day, Trump rewarded his guy for not cooperating.
And he actually got something better than a pardon, Richard. He got a commutation. A pardon is only available to someone who admits their guilt. Roger Stone got a commutation. He doesn't have to go to prison, but he gets to appeal his conviction. He gets to contest whether he is guilty. A pardon is not like that. A pardon, you have to say, I did wrong, exonerate me. A commutation is a little better here. And here's the thing that troubles me about Attorney General Barr. He did say it was a righteous prosecution, but I think that was window dressing because when he testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee, he answered a question of Senator Patrick Leahy. If a president awards a pardon or a commutation to someone to keep them silent, what would that be, Bill Barr? Bill Barr said that's a crime. So when Barr said he opposed this pardon or commutation, he should have said more than that. He should have said, Mr. President, if you do this, it is a crime and I shall resign. And that same standard should apply to the White House counsel.
You know what? As I said off the top, Gene, you got presidents of both parties over the years who've pardoned some unsavory folks. But this is the first one where a pardon was given out to somebody who was directly involved in his particular impeachment proceedings. And at the end of the day, you know, Stone was rewarded for basically being a bad guy to go along to get along with this president. I think going forward, we ought to revisit the idea that pardons can't be basically handed out to protect one's own political hide. Because at the end of the day, that's why Stone's walking out free today, and apparently now even going to play a role in the re-election campaign of Trump.
Okay, go back to January of 2001. Bill Clinton, in the last week or two of his presidency, pardoned Mark Rich. What did the Southern District of New York do? They opened an investigation. Why? Because if you give out a pardon or a commutation in exchange for something of value, to remain silent, that is a crime. And if you go back to Watergate and the draft indictment by the Watergate prosecutors, one of the overt acts or several of the overt acts included Richard Nixon promising to conspirators that he would issue a pardon or commute their sentences if they remained silent. They have the right to do it constitutionally, but it does violate the statute. It is a quid pro quo. It is textbook robbery. And in January of next year, if we have a new regime, that part of Trump's presidency should be investigated for a crime.
Well, that brings me to my last point, and I won't even get into the silliness now. You got Lindsey Graham who wants to haul Mueller up to the hill. This is apparently what gets his goat. But to me, the two Supreme Court rulings that came down last week, and I know it kicked the can down the road a little bit. We're not going to see these tax returns or financial statements before November in all likelihood. But I'm thinking if I'm the president, I got Cy Vance who's going to get his hands. It's a matter of if, not if rather, but it's a matter of when. If I'm a private citizen, I lose in November, I think I got a lot to worry about. How concerned should Trump be? Maybe not as it's going to impact the election, but particularly if he loses the election.
That's a softball question. He is facing two fronts here. He's facing Cy Vance, obviously the New York DA, Manhattan DA. But I worked for the Department of Justice 27 years, and 11 of those 27, I proudly worked for the tax division. Let me tell you this. If the government of the United States gets a hold of Donald Trump's tax returns, I will be shocked if there is not a treasure trove of potential grounds for investigating him. His charity, his organization, the inaugural committee, his personal tax returns, the returns of his family. He is probably scared to death that the federal government may get his tax returns in the end. It may not be this year, but if he is defeated in the next couple of years, there could be a possible investigation, not only by Cy Vance, by the United States Department of Justice. I guarantee that, as Joe Namath said a few years ago when he predicted the Super Bowl victory.
Great job as always. I appreciate it for you. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, everybody, when we come back, Republicans turning against Trump, how a growing number of voters and big-name members of the Grand Old Party now rallying against the president. A woman who's leading that movement, she'll join me after the break.